The night sky above the broken land was endless and dark, filled with sharp stars that burned like cold fire. Captain Ryan sat beside the wreck of his ship, staring into the silence. His small fire gave weak light, the flame shaking in the strange wind. He had been stranded on this alien planet for 3 long days. His supplies were almost gone. His strength was failing. Ryan had traveled across many stars, seen many worlds, but he had never felt this much alone. The silence pressed down on him. His radio was broken. The emergency beacon cracked during the crash. No signal could reach the deep black sky. He had only 2 water packs left and 1 small food ration. He looked at the silver packet in his hand, the last meal he had. Just 1 more bite of life. The planet around him was silent but not dead. He could hear faint movements in the distance, like soft footsteps, like whispers in the dark. The trees here were tall and thin, glowing with faint blue lines as if veins of light ran through them. Shadows moved between them. Sometimes Ryan thought he saw shapes watching him, but whenever he turned his head, nothing was there. The fire cracked. He pulled his jacket tighter, feeling the cold creep into his bones. His mind was heavy. Hunger gnawed at him. Fear whispered that he would not last another night. He closed his eyes, trying to hold on to some hope. Then he heard it. A voice, small, trembling, almost like a child's. "I'm hungry." Ryan's eyes shot open. He turned his head slowly, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. He thought at first he was hearing things, his mind breaking under stress. But no, it was real. The voice was close. He lifted his flashlight and pointed it toward the edge of the trees. At first he saw nothing. Then from the shadows a figure stepped forward. It was not human. The figure was small, no taller than his waist. Her skin was pale with a soft glow, almost like moonlight. Her hair floated lightly as if moved by a breeze that was not there. Her eyes were large, round, and bright, shining like twin stars. She looked fragile, like a glass figure come alive. Ryan froze. His hand tightened on the food packet. The alien girl stood still, watching him. She tilted her head, her voice soft but clear. "I'm hungry." The words were simple, broken, but filled with emotion. Ryan's throat went dry. He could not move for a moment. Here, in this dying place, when he himself was starving, a strange being was asking him for food. He felt fear. He felt wonder. He felt something else, too. Pity. The alien girl stepped closer, slowly, carefully. She did not look dangerous. Her hands were small, held against her chest, almost like she was afraid of him. Ryan's human instinct told him she was not a threat. She was alone, just like him. He looked again at the silver packet in his hand. His last meal. If he gave it away, he would have nothing. But if he kept it, could he even eat it in peace while she looked at him with those glowing eyes? Ryan's mind raced. He had survived many dangers, fought storms, faced enemies, but this moment felt heavier than all of them. It was not just about food. It was about choice. The fire hissed as the wind blew. The alien girl shivered, her glow dimming like a fading light. She whispered again, softer this time. "I'm hungry." Ryan felt his heart break. Slowly, with shaking hands, he opened the food packet. The smell of the ration filled the air, warm and rich. He tore a piece and looked at it one last time. Then, without a word, he reached out and placed it in her small hands. The alien girl blinked, surprised. For a moment, she did not move. Then she brought the food to her lips and ate. Her eyes closed and a soft smile touched her face. Her body glowed brighter, like the food had given her not just strength but life itself. Ryan watched in silence, his stomach twisting with hunger, but his heart strangely at peace. He did not know what she was. He did not know why she had come. But in that moment, in the middle of a cold and lonely world, he had given his last meal to a stranger from the stars. And somehow, he felt less alone. But in the dark woods, far beyond the fire's light, other eyes were watching. The night had only just begun. The small alien girl sat close to the fire, holding the last meal of the human in her tiny hands. She ate slowly, carefully, as if every bite was precious. Her glowing eyes softened, and her pale skin brightened with each swallow, like the food was not only filling her stomach but also giving her strength. She had lost long ago. Ryan watched in silence, his body weak with hunger but his heart strangely calm. He had given away his only food, the final hope of his survival. Yet he did not regret it. Something about her small voice, the way she whispered, "I'm hungry," had touched him deeper than fear. She was not just an alien. She was a lost soul like him. The night air grew colder and the fire cracked with tired sparks. Ryan pulled his jacket tighter, but his stomach twisted painfully. His head grew light, but he forced himself to stay awake, eyes fixed on the girl. She finished the last of the meal and looked at him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, innocent and fragile, but it carried warmth that cut through the cold night. She touched her chest lightly and said in broken words, "Lyra, me Lyra." Ryan blinked, realizing she was telling him her name. He nodded, his voice low. "Ryan." Her smile widened. She repeated softly, "Ryan." For the first time since the crash, Ryan felt something alive inside him. Connection. The girl, Lyra, had no fear in her eyes. She trusted him, though he was a stranger, though he was human. She shifted closer to the fire, her glowing form warming the darkness around them. But Ryan's hunger deepened. His body trembled and his vision blurred. He leaned back against a broken metal panel from his ship. His thoughts began to drift, heavy and slow. He wondered if this was how his story would end, on a cold alien world after giving his last meal to someone else. Yet Lyra noticed. Her large eyes blinked with concern. She tilted her head, watching the human who had shared his only food. She stood and walked closer to him. Her small hand reached out, touching his arm. It was warm, soft, and carried a strange energy. Ryan looked at her weakly, unable to speak. Then something happened. Her glow spread from her hand into his body like threads of light sinking through his skin. His pain softened. His dizziness lessened. His heart calmed. It was as if she was giving back some of the strength she had gained from the meal. Ryan gasped quietly, surprised. He felt the cold loosen its grip. His mind sharpened. Not enough to make him full, but enough to keep him alive. He looked at her with wide eyes, but she only smiled again, as if this gift was natural for her people. The fire hissed low. Shadows stretched across the glowing trees. The night was far from safe, and Ryan knew it. Strange calls echoed from the forest, deep and guttural, nothing like the voice of Lyra. Something else lived here, and it was watching. Lyra turned her head quickly, her glow flickering. She made a soft sound like warning. Then she looked back at Ryan, grabbed his hand, and pulled gently. "Come," she said, her voice shaky but firm. "Come." Ryan hesitated. His body was weak, but her grip was strong with urgency. He stood slowly, leaning on her tiny form, surprised by her strength. She led him away from the wreckage of his ship, away from the fading fire. The night around them grew darker, heavier, filled with unseen eyes. The glowing lines on the alien trees pulsed as they walked, as if the forest itself was alive and reacting to their presence. Ryan stumbled, but Lyra guided him with steady steps. She moved as if she knew the path, as if she belonged here. Soon they reached the mouth of a cave hidden by hanging vines. Lyra slipped inside, pulling Ryan with her. Inside, the walls shimmered faintly, covered in strange glowing symbols carved long ago. The air was warmer, safer. The cave seemed to hum with quiet power. Ryan leaned against the wall, catching his breath. His eyes scanned the symbols, but he could not understand them. Still he felt something. Mystery, history, and danger. Lyra looked at him, her small chest rising with fast breaths. She knelt beside him, her glowing eyes soft. "Safe," she whispered. "Here safe," Ryan wanted to believe her. He nodded slowly, trusting her more than the silence outside. But as he closed his eyes, resting in the cave, one thought burned in his mind. Who was this little alien girl, really? Why had she been alone, starving in the cold night? And why did he feel that giving his last meal had not been the end, but only the beginning? The darkness outside the cave growled again, low and hungry. The gift of survival had been given, but the true test was only beginning. The cave was silent except for the slow drip of water echoing from deep inside. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the stone walls, carved in lines that seemed older than time itself. Ryan sat on the cold floor, his breath heavy, still weak but alive. The warmth from Lyra's strange energy still lingered in his body, like fire in his veins. The small alien girl sat across from him, her glowing eyes fixed on the symbols. She reached out with her tiny hand and touched one of the carvings. The lines lit up brighter under her touch, spreading across the wall like living fire. The symbols seemed to respond to her, as if she was the key that had been waiting all along. Ryan watched in silence, his heart beating faster. He knew then she was not just a lost child. She was connected to something greater, something ancient. Lyra, he whispered, his voice rough. What is this place? She turned to him slowly, her hair floating like threads of light. For a moment her face was sad, her glow dim. Then she pointed at herself, then at the glowing wall, and spoke in her broken words. Home, old home, all gone. Her words stabbed into Ryan's chest like knives. He understood. Her people were gone. This cave, these glowing symbols were all that remained. She was not only hungry for food. She was hungry for connection, for survival, for someone to see her before she disappeared like the rest of her race. Ryan lowered his head, a wave of pity washing over him. He knew the feeling of being alone, but her loneliness was far greater. He had lost a crew, a ship, maybe a way home, but she had lost an entire world. Lyra stood and walked deeper into the cave. Ryan forced himself to follow, his body heavy but his mind burning with curiosity. The tunnel narrowed, then opened into a wide chamber. The walls pulsed with glowing veins, and in the center stood a crystal structure, tall and sharp, humming with power. Ryan's eyes widened. The crystal seemed alive, filled with light that shifted like water. It cast long shadows across the chamber, painting the walls in moving colors. Around the crystal were more carvings showing strange shapes, tall beings with glowing eyes standing among stars. Ships, planets, and great battles were etched into the stone. This is history, Ryan whispered, stepping closer. Your people's history. Lyra nodded, her small hand brushing the carvings. She stopped at one image. It showed her kind, standing beside taller figures that looked almost human. She tapped the image and then looked up at Ryan, her voice soft but clear. Friend. Long ago, Ryan froze, his eyes locked on the carving. Could it be true? Could humans and her people have met before in some forgotten time? The thought sent shivers through his body. But before he could speak, a deep rumble shook the cave. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ryan's instincts sharpened. Something outside was moving, something heavy, something alive. Lyra's glow flickered nervously. She grabbed Ryan's hand, pulling him closer to the crystal. She placed her small palm against the shining surface, and suddenly the crystal responded. A wave of energy spread through the chamber, the humming growing louder. Ryan felt it in his bones, like the planet itself was waking up. The crystal projected a faint image into the air. Stars, planets, maps, all spinning in a glowing display. It was a star chart. Ryan stared in awe. This could change everything. But Lyra's expression was different. Her eyes were wide with fear. She pointed to one side of the projection, a shadow shaped like a monstrous beast devouring stars. The image flickered like a warning. Ryan's chest tightened. He didn't know what it meant, but he understood enough. Something had destroyed her people. Something was still out there. The rumble outside grew louder, closer. A roar echoed through the night, shaking the walls of the cave. Ryan grabbed a broken piece of metal from the ground, his makeshift weapon. He looked at Lyra. What's coming? She looked at him with fear in her glowing eyes and whispered one word. Hunters. Ryan's blood ran cold. The shadows outside shifted, and the sound of claws scraping stone filled the entrance. The crystal hummed harder, as if warning them both. Lyra clung to Ryan's arm, her glow flickering like a dying flame. Ryan stood firm, his weapon shaking in his hand. He had no food, no strength, and no plan, but he had made a choice. To protect her. The chamber lit brighter as the crystal pulsed, the ancient symbols burning like fire. Ryan felt a strange force filling him again. Strength he didn't understand, but enough to stand. The hunters were near. The secret of the alien girl had been revealed. But the danger of that secret was only just beginning. The sound of claws scraped louder against the stone, echoing through the cave like knives dragging over glass. Ryan tightened his grip on the broken piece of metal, his heart pounding in his chest. The firelight in his mind screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The cave was their shelter, and now it had become their trap. Lyra's glow flickered nervously, her small hand clutching Ryan's sleeve. Her wide eyes shimmered in the dim light, and her lips moved in a trembling whisper. Hunters. The word sent a chill down Ryan's spine. He had fought beasts before, seen predators on alien worlds, but there was something different in her voice. Something ancient, something that carried memory of fear passed down through generations. The cave mouth darkened as shadows moved in. Then he saw them. Tall, lean creatures stepped into view, their bodies armored with rough, dark scales. Their eyes glowed a sickly green, their teeth long and sharp. They were not animals. They were hunters, built for killing, moving with purpose. Ryan raised his weapon, though it felt small and weak compared to the monsters before him. The lead hunter hissed, its voice like broken stone. Then, to Ryan's shock, it spoke in a language he could almost understand. Human. Leave. Ryan's eyes narrowed. He did not lower his weapon. Behind him, the crystal pulsed, glowing stronger. The hunter's eyes flicked toward it, and Ryan realized the truth. They weren't here for him. They were here for Lyra, and for the power of the crystal. One of the hunters stepped forward, pointing its long claw at Lyra. Child, come. Ryan felt her small grip tighten around his arm. Her glow dimmed with fear, but she shook her head. No! The hunters hissed in anger, their voices twisting together in a terrible growl. Ryan stepped in front of her, his body forming a wall of flesh and bone between her and the predators. His voice came out rough but steady. You'll have to get through me first. The lead hunter tilted its head, studying him. For a moment, the cave was silent except for the hum of the crystal. Then the hunter spoke again, slower this time. Human. Test, Ryan frowned. The hunters stepped back, forming a circle around the chamber. Their glowing eyes locked on him, waiting, expecting. He realized then, they weren't just beasts. They were guardians. And this was no simple attack. Lyra tugged at his arm, whispering urgently. Trust, test. Must pass. Ryan's heart pounded harder. A test, a trial? He had no idea what they wanted, but he could see the truth in their eyes. They would not let him leave, not let Lyra live unless he proved himself. The crystal flared suddenly, sending a wave of light across the chamber. Ryan felt it hit his chest like a voice pressing into his mind. Images flashed before his eyes. Lyra's people, tall and glowing, standing in harmony with humans long ago. Then fire, war, hunters tearing through cities of light. The vision ended with silence, and the voice echoed in his mind. Will you protect or will you destroy? Ryan staggered, gasping, the weight of the vision heavy in his head. He looked at Lyra, her small glowing face staring up at him with fear and hope. He looked at the hunters, their claws ready, their eyes burning. He understood now. This was not about strength. It was about choice. Slowly, Ryan dropped his weapon. The metal clanged against the stone floor. The hunters hissed in surprise, their bodies tensing. But Ryan stepped forward empty-handed and spread his arms. If you want her, he said, his voice strong despite the fear inside him, you'll have to go through me. But I won't fight you. I'll protect her with my life. The words hung in the air like thunder. Lyra gasped softly, her glow brightening. The hunters froze. Their green eyes flickered, confusion spreading among them. The lead hunter stepped closer, its face inches from Ryan's. It sniffed him, its breath hot and sharp. Then slowly, it stepped back. The circle of hunters lowered their claws. The lead one hissed again, but this time its voice was softer, almost respectful. Human, worthy. The cave trembled as the crystal pulsed brighter, filling the chamber with waves of light. The hunters bowed their heads slightly, then turned and vanished into the shadows, their glowing eyes fading into the darkness. Ryan collapsed to his knees, shaking with relief. His chest heaved, his heart racing. He had faced death, and yet he was still alive. Not because of strength, but because of choice. Lyra rushed to his side, her small arms wrapping around him. Her glow wrapped him in warmth, and her voice trembled with gratitude. Ryan, trust, you protect. Ryan held her gently, his eyes fixed on the crystal. He didn't know what the next trial would be, but he knew one thing now. The bond between him and Lyra was no accident. It was destiny, and destiny was only just beginning to unfold. The chamber was quiet after the hunters vanished, their green eyes fading into the darkness of the cave. Only the hum of the great crystal remained, filling the air with a deep rhythm like the heartbeat of the world itself. Ryan sat on the stone floor, breathing heavily, his body trembling with exhaustion. He had faced them with nothing but his choice, and somehow it had been enough. Lyra sat beside him, her glowing form close, her eyes wide with relief. She had watched everything, the moment he dropped his weapon, the moment he chose to stand without violence. Now she looked at him as if he were more than human, as if he had done something impossible. But Ryan only felt tired. He pressed his hand against the cold stone, trying to steady himself. What was that? he asked softly. Lyra placed her small hand on his arm. Her voice was quiet, broken but clear. Guardians. They test, if human-worthy. Ryan frowned, staring at the crystal as its light rippled across the walls. He thought of the question he had heard in his mind. Will you protect or will you destroy? He knew then that this place, this cave, was no ordinary shelter. It was a memory, a trial, a gate left behind by her people. Before he could speak again, the crystal pulsed brighter. A wave of light shot across the chamber and suddenly images filled the air. Beings of light, Lyra's people, stood tall, their glowing eyes kind and powerful. They moved among the stars, building cities of brilliance, forming bonds with other worlds. And then Ryan saw it, humans. Ancient, dressed in armor from another time, standing beside them as allies. Ryan's heart leapt. Humans? We were here before? He whispered. But the vision shifted, fire, destruction. The hunters tearing through shining towers, Lyra's people falling one by one. And in the middle of the chaos, Ryan saw something. A human turning away, leaving them behind. A betrayal, or maybe just fear. The image burned into his chest like a scar. The light faded and the chamber was silent again. Ryan lowered his head, his thoughts heavy. The Guardians had tested him not just for Lyra's sake, but for the memory of a broken trust. Lyra looked at him carefully, her eyes full of questions she could not put into words. Finally she spoke, her small voice trembling. Why, Ryan? Why you give food? Last food? To me? The question struck him harder than the hunter's claws ever could. He looked at her, the memory of that moment flashing in his mind, the hunger twisting his stomach, the silver packet in his hand, her glowing eyes whispering, I'm hungry. He could have kept it. He could have survived a little longer, but he had not. And now she wanted to know why. Ryan swallowed, his throat dry. His voice came out low, almost a whisper, but steady. Because no one should starve. Not me, not you. Doesn't matter what world you're from. If I have food and someone else doesn't, then I share. That's what it means to be human. His words echoed softly in the chamber. Lyra's eyes widened, her glow brightening as if touched by something greater. The crystal pulsed once, twice, then burned with sudden brilliance. From the shadows, the Guardians returned, not as hunters now, but as watchers. Their green eyes no longer sharp with anger, but calm, curious. They had heard him. They had understood. One of them stepped forward, lowering its head slightly. Its voice was deep, no longer harsh. Human. Spirit. The others echoed, their voices blending like thunder. Human. Spirit. Ryan stared, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He did not fully understand what was happening, but he felt the weight of the moment. His simple choice, his small act of kindness, had become something far greater. The crystal released another wave of light, and this time it wrapped around Lyra. She gasped as her body glowed brighter than ever before, her form shining like a star. Ryan shielded his eyes from the brilliance, but he could still see her face, smiling, alive, powerful. The Guardians stepped back, their heads bowed. One of them spoke again, softer than before. Child. Awakened. Ryan's heart pounded. Awakened. He looked at Lyra, who now stood taller, her glow steady and strong. She was no longer just a fragile girl. She was something more, something reborn. Lyra turned to Ryan, her small hand reaching for his. Her voice, though still broken, carried strength. You. Protect, human. Friend. Ryan felt his throat tighten. He squeezed her hand gently, nodding. Always. The Guardians vanished into the shadows once more, leaving only silence and the hum of the crystal. Ryan knew then that this was not the end. This was the beginning of something larger than both of them. The human spirit had been tested, and it had been seen. But as the light dimmed and the cave grew quiet again, Ryan could not shake the feeling that the true challenge was still waiting out there, beyond the glowing trees. In the darkness of the stars, the cave glowed with a gentle light after the Guardians disappeared, their heavy steps fading into silence. Ryan stood in the center of the chamber, still holding Lyra's small hand. His body was weak, but his heart was strong. He had faced the test, spoken his truth, and somehow he and Lyra had survived. The crystal pulsed softly, no longer harsh or blinding, but warm and calm, as if it had accepted him. Its light wrapped around Ryan like a cloak, filling the air with strange energy. He felt his hunger ease for the first time in days. His wounds, the cuts from the crash, the bruises on his arms, they no longer ached. Ryan staggered back, eyes wide. What's happening? Lyra stepped closer to the crystal. Her glow was brighter than ever, her small figure surrounded by a halo of light. She pressed her palm to the crystal's surface, and again it responded to her. The chamber shook lightly and a hum rose from the floor. The stone walls began to shift, sliding back to reveal hidden alcoves. Ryan's breath caught. Inside the alcoves were containers, strange boxes made of alien metal glowing faintly. Lyra pointed at them with her small hand, her voice soft but sure. Food, water, gift. Ryan hurried to one, opening it with shaky hands. Inside, rows of glowing fruits and crystal-like water vials sparkled in the light. He stared, unbelieving. He picked up one of the fruits, and as soon as he bit into it, warmth spread through his body. Strength returned to his muscles. His hunger, the endless pain in his stomach, vanished. He dropped to his knees, his eyes wet. For so long he had been on the edge of death. Now because of her, he was alive again. He looked at Lyra, his voice low and shaking. You saved me." Lyra tilted her head, smiling gently. "You first. Save me." Her words struck him deep. He remembered that night, the fire, the ration in his hand, her small voice whispering, "I'm hungry." He had given his last meal to her, thinking it was the end. Now the gift had returned, greater than he could ever imagine. Ryan ate slowly, feeling life flow back into him, and he watched Lyra as she moved to another alcove. This one did not hold food, it held something else. A device, small and glowing, shaped like a star in her hands. She brought it to Ryan, placing it gently before him. He stared at it. "What is this?" Lyra's glow flickered, and she spoke carefully. "Ship fix. You go home." Ryan's chest tightened. His ship, his home, Earth. The word echoed in his mind like a forgotten dream. For days he had believed there was no return. Now in her hands was hope, a chance to leave this world behind. But as he looked at the device, he felt a weight in his heart. He turned to Lyra. Her glowing eyes were bright, but there was sadness in them. She was offering him freedom, but he could see it. She did not want him to go. He crouched down, meeting her eyes. "If I fix my ship, what about you?" Lyra's smile faltered. She looked down at her small hands. "I stay last guard." Ryan's throat tightened. He understood. She was the last of her kind. This cave, this crystal, her very existence, it was her duty to remain. She could not leave, even if she wanted to. Silence filled the chamber, heavy and painful. Ryan looked at the device again, then back at Lyra. His heart was torn in two. He wanted to go home, to see Earth again, to feel the sun on his face, to hear human voices. But he also wanted to stay, to protect her, to make sure she was never alone again. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. The crystal hummed as if listening to his thoughts. Finally, he spoke, his voice steady but heavy. "Lyra, if I go, I'll never forget you. I'll tell everyone about you, about your people, about what you gave me. But if I stay, I'll stand with you. You'll never be alone again." Lyra looked up at him, her glowing eyes wet with unspoken tears. She stepped forward and placed the crystal device in his hands. But then she pressed her tiny palm against his chest. "Choice, you choose." Ryan held the device tightly, his heart pounding. The hum of the crystal grew louder, waiting for his answer. The chamber filled with light, as if the very world leaned in to hear what he would decide. He looked at Lyra, then at the stars shone in the crystal's glow. His choice would shape not only his fate, but perhaps the fate of two species. The gift had been returned. But the question remained, would he keep it for himself or give it back again? The crystal chamber was alive with light, pulsing like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Ryan stood frozen in its glow, the strange device in his hands, the choice heavy on his shoulders. His ship could be fixed. He could go home. Earth was waiting for him. Maybe family, maybe friends who thought he was gone forever. But beside him stood Lyra, the last of her kind, her glowing eyes filled with hope and fear. She had given him life, and now she was asking him to choose. Ryan's mind burned with memories. The crash, the endless hunger, the silver packet in his hand, her small voice whispering, "I'm hungry." The night when he gave her his last meal, not knowing if he would live to see the next morning. That one act had led to this moment. That kindness had opened a door no human had ever seen. He looked at Lyra, his voice low, shaking. If I leave, you'll be alone. Lyra's glow flickered. She touched her small hand to her chest. Alone already? But now I have you. The words cut through him. She was trying to be strong, but he could see the truth in her eyes. She didn't want him to go. The crystal hummed louder, pressing his choice. He closed his eyes, breathing hard. His heart ached with the weight of two worlds. Finally, he opened his eyes, his voice steady. Lyra, I'll go home. But I promise this isn't goodbye. I'll tell my people about you. I'll tell them about your kindness, about your strength. One day humans will return. Not to take, not to destroy, but to stand as friends. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then Lyra smiled softly. Her glow shimmered like a star, and she pressed the crystal device back into his hands. Promise. You remember? Ryan nodded, his throat tight. Always. With her help, he returned to the wreck of his ship. The crystal device fit perfectly into the broken core. The systems lit up for the first time since the crash, glowing with alien power. The engines hummed, the panels flickered alive. His ship was ready to fly, but as he prepared to step inside, he felt her small hand grab his one last time. He looked down. Lyra held out a tiny glowing shard of crystal, broken from the great chamber. She placed it in his palm. Keep, for you. For humans. Ryan closed his fingers around it, the warmth sinking deep into his chest. He bent down, meeting her glowing eyes one last time. I'll come back. I swear it. She smiled, but her eyes shimmered with tears. The ship's engines roared, shaking the ground. Ryan climbed aboard, the door sliding shut behind him. Through the glass, he saw her standing there, her small figure glowing in the night, her hand raised in farewell. He pressed his hand to the window. She pressed hers to the outside, the glass separating them, but the bond unbroken. The ship lifted slowly, rising into the dark sky. The glowing forest shrank below, the cave hidden among the trees fading from view. Ryan's eyes stayed locked on Lyra until she was no more than a star in the distance. Silence filled the cabin as the ship broke through the clouds and into the endless sea of stars. Ryan sat back, holding the shard of crystal tightly in his hand. He felt the hum of its energy, and he felt her presence inside it, as if she was traveling with him, even now. Days later, when the battered ship finally reached the orbit of Earth, Ryan sent a message across every channel, every signal. His voice carried the truth of what he had seen. There is life out there. A girl named Lyra, the last of her people. She gave me hope when I had none. She trusted me when I was a stranger. I gave her my last meal, and in return she gave me survival. Humanity must not forget her. We must go to the stars not with greed, but with kindness. Many on Earth did not believe him. Some called it a lie, a story told by a dying man. But others listened. Others felt the truth in his words. Years passed. The shard of crystal was studied, its strange energy undeniable. Ryan grew older, but he never let go of his promise. Every night he looked at the stars, searching for the faint glow of her world. And then one quiet night the signal came. A voice carried through the speakers, soft and trembling, but clear. Ryan, not alone. Waiting. Ryan's eyes filled with tears. His promise had reached across the stars. Humanity's kindness had not been forgotten. The legacy of one choice, one meal, one act of compassion had changed the fate of two species, and the story was only beginning.